SHOT Show 2019 at the SetCan booth with, I'm not, you know what, I gotta say it, okay, it's Juice.
Yes.
And it's Juice because if you pan down, he's ready to be juiced, I guess, is probably the general concept, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, Juice, I believe that I talked to the founder of the company a while back, a number of years ago. But if you would just give us a snapshot of the origin and what you guys do.
Sure. So the company SetCan actually is Stress Enforcement Training Canada. So that's kind of the origin, and you'll see as we go through some of the products here where that comes from. So we're primarily a reality-based training company, and with that we supply a lot of different products. Some of them that have been innovative and come from in-house members, and then other products that we've brought into the program as well that we support.
And I see some what I believe are new items and new pieces of gear as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So over time, we started off with our shock knife as one of our main products that we've had over the years. And with this, obviously to reinforce for individuals going through reality-based training that not to grab onto an edged weapon. Before this, it was rubber knives, for example, and we'd have participants who would often reach out or try and grab an edged weapon. With the shock knife now, there's a pain penalty involved with that, and that's what we don't want to necessarily injure the participants, but we want to train them so that they're successful, so that when they go out in the real world and they have real-world encounters, they deal with it accordingly. And it all starts with the training.
And Juice,
yes.
There's some people that I know that would probably take that to a party.
No, I am same. I've probably been to a few of those parties myself. But they are training devices and training aids, again, to make our officers, our soldiers, or anyone working in the security world, to make them better prepared for the realities of what they might deal with. Over here we have some of our DTS tools. And with these, they're all realistic tools, but again, we want to try and minimize injuries to our participants. So these are all rubber tools, so if I do hit someone with it, they're not going to have any injury as a result of that.
But they'll know that they've been struck.
They'll know that they've been struck, exactly. You don't have to deal with the bruising and or potential injuries, which a lot of departments obviously are concerned with when we're doing reality-based training. So we want to try and minimize that, but still make the training as realistic as possible. As we move down the line over here, we have a blue baton, again, to be used in training. Primarily, a lot of departments use large foam batons before, but there was never really a good place to mount it with their equipment. With the blue baton, you can have, just like you would your traditional AS baton, you can carry it in your regular scabbard or holder, and it'll deploy just like the weapon that they use in the real world.
That's great, because the training devices I've seen will not, I mean, this actually, you could carry this on your kit.
Absolutely.
And use it, does it have the same weight of an expandable baton?
The weight is a little bit different, just because there isn't the metal involved in the structure. Part of that is, though, again, to reduce the injury. So it does have a flexible end on it.
Right.
So you can do baton strikes with limited protective equipment, and you're not going to have, again, bruising or impact injuries.
It would be hard to make it the proper weight without basically creating another expandable baton.
Yeah, exactly, because then you would end up with...
You'd defeat the purpose of the training.
Absolutely. But again, training them with tools that replicate what they are using, and then that way when they go in the real world, they're already used to deploying a baton in a stressful scenario. Right.
You could even go with a subject disarming an officer or an individual with his own tool, and as the officer is being struck, he knows that he's being struck, but it's not going to be actually causing injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
And likewise with your edge tools, your training tools, the old school way would be to just take a real machete and to tape it, and well, okay, now nobody's going to get cut, but of course that always has a risk factor involved.
Absolutely, yes. So again, trying to make it as realistic as possible, but yet maintaining the safety components that our employers obviously want, and same with our participants. No one wants to go home at the end of a training day all marked up and bruised and hurting as a result.
Well, unless a guy wants extra time off, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, that's another problem that the department has to deal with.
Yeah. I like the fire poker concept because, quite frankly, how many times have you seen a fire poker or a fireplace tool used in a domestic disturbance or something like that.
Absolutely.
So you've got real life. The point I'm getting at is you've got realistic, true to experience tools that people are going to encounter.
Absolutely, and that's where a lot of the ideas come from, is from officers being involved in a situation and going, I wish we could replicate this in training. And a lot of the ideas come from that, and that's what we want to do. We want to prepare them the best we can when they get out into the real world. What I'm wearing right now on me is another one of our main products, and that's the stress vest. And similar to the shock knife, we want to add a little bit more realism to that dynamic scenario training. And with the stress vest, what happens is that the pain penalty in this case, instead of being delivered by way of a paintball or a munition round, the pain penalty is delivered by way of a shock to the participant's abdomen. So if you take the idea of almost laser tag for law enforcement or military training, it's kind of the simplest way of thinking about it. It is all proprietary lasers. They are pinpoint accurate in that you have to be accurate in your shooting in order to
get the reaction.
To get the reaction, yeah, absolutely.
We'll say if I've got a laser pistol, one of your laser tools, and I target you center mass, will you feel it center mass, or will it cover the entire area?
Okay, so the pain penalty itself will be delivered to the lower abdomen.
So strictly where your belt area is,
Exactly.
where you've got the receiver.
You have, you have it, exactly.
Okay.
So the idea behind that, again, is we want to reduce injuries for participants. So if you had it on a participant's leg, for example, you may cause a secondary injury from them falling over. When it's placed in the lower abdomen, the body will naturally bend in that motion if there is a shock delivered there. So it prevents any secondary injuries, and again, allowing officers to train and then go out and work the next day.
So is the reaction similar to taser training?
Far less. There's far less electricity that's going through this system than there would be a taser.
Because you mentioned the potential risk factor of somebody falling over if it was on a leg, so that's why.
Yeah, potentially you could have someone. We do have reactions. Typically, they'll have a full body reaction where the person will buckle their knees a little bit, and affecting their shooting platform. But that's one of the nice things about the system, is that it does make it somewhat realistic, and that now the participants keep moving through the scenario. They have to get back on target and engage their threats.
So it's called stress, stress vest.
Yes.
So it's actually using an electric pulse, if I'm probably wrong on the terminology, but using an electric pulse to replicate being the receiver of a round in a real life scenario.
Yeah,
because, it's not like the films and movies where if you're hit, your body moves 5 or 6 feet and you fall to the ground. It's more, you're going to have a physical reaction, but it's going to be more of a pain-oriented reaction to that round being absorbed.
And again, it's not. We don't want to cause injury to the participants. It's used as a training aid.
Right.
So again, we want to shape the individual's tactics and training, and this is just a tool that enables us to be able to do that.
And it creates. What I'm getting at is it creates an actual physical reaction that they have to recover from, instead of just like, oh wow, I felt like a buzzing sensation on my belt.
And it does have nice modes built into the system itself, right into the belt. One of them is move to cover mode. So if you have an individual who's standing in a doorway, he's in that fatal funnel, and he's taking gunfire, it's going to start at the lowest pain penalty, and then it's going to move up from there. So every time he gets hit, on the first one, he might not feel it for whatever reason. The second one, it's going to be,
it's going to become more, okay,
and it makes him think, this hurts standing here, I need to move to cover. So it gets people moving on their feet, thinking. Another one of the modes that's pre-programmed is injured officer mode. It's one of my favorites, and that one, when you get hit, it'll randomly activate the belt for a period of 15, 20, or 30 seconds, depending on which one you choose, reminding that individual that they have been compromised. With the traditional systems of a marking round, for example, you get hit, and then you forget about it. With the injured officer mode, you keep moving through that scenario because we want people to be successful and work through it. but it reminds them as they're going through that they have been compromised. So we now have participants telling their partner, I've been hit, you go in handcuff, I'll cover you. Things like that. So it's very neat.
What's price point on this device?
Price point on this, actually, that would be best suited for...
Do you have a rough idea, or would that just be better to be addressed later? Okay, no worries. Yeah. How about some price point on some of your devices here, if you know?
Yeah, that again.
Okay, no worries.
I deal more on the
and someone could look,
training.
Sure. Someone could look at the website or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Now, something that I don't remember seeing in the past are these yellow training tools.
Okay, so these are pat-down props. So this is essentially used to help train individuals for doing pat-downs. So searching without using real weapons, for example. So it's a very safe way to be able to do that. And you can see there's obviously some metallics, some tinfoil built into the product. And that's for individuals that are training for metal detectors, security training, things like that. Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's everything on the training side to help people prepare for the real world.
One of the things I like about what I've seen here and in the past, as an example,
real world stuff.
Old school, you would take, you would make a fake, but yet a complete replica razor.
Yes.
But you would tape it.
Yes.
And so, but again, as you know, as I mentioned earlier about taping a blade, taping one of these, although you can get that realistic feel because it's a real live razor blade, you still are going to run that risk of an actual injury. What you have here is something that is totally safe, yet is exactly the right size and in my estimate, the exact weight of a straight razor, or not a straight razor, but a razor blade.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all things that officers will potentially come across, or security personnel.
Right.
So again, just trying to get them,
including syringes,
pipes,
small
knives, you name it.
All things that you really don't want to play around with in training if it's a real device, even if it is totally inert and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. And even small things like a screwdriver, a lot of recruits may not think of this as being a weapon, whereas more seasoned officers might recognize that. So with less experienced individuals having props that do replicate things that a mechanic might have in his pocket, and them realizing that those are things that they have to be concerned about. So.
Right. Yeah, you could actually plant these on your training subject, let your trainee run through a pat down and a removal, for your contact, and an inexperienced trainee may recognize exactly what it is and yet think of it as a non-potential threat and leave it on board. And now you can debrief them later and say, well, okay, this is why.
You got it.
Yeah, beautiful. Anything else going on? Juice?
That is a lot of the products that we have. Another one here is the neck check. So for departments that are training lateral vascular neck restraints, it's again a training tool to help officers safely train for doing or putting on a proper choke so that they're not injuring people when they go out in the real world.
I like the term you used earlier, lateral
vascular neck restraint. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this would definitely help you. Now
So this is built in, it's got sensors on it. So for example, if you go on the individual's trachea or the windpipe, it'll activate
a signal.
Without actually,
getting to the point of where you have a guy who's tapped out.
So we all know that's a skill that officers do have to train very diligently and be very cautious when they're training that. So that again is just a safer way of getting them prepared for the real world.
Very good.
Yes.
Outstanding. Well, again, I hesitate every time to call you Juice, but Juice, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No worries.
You have a safe trip back up north. Well, thank you very much, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Excellent.